My Iaido Sensei was Kendo practitioner and instructor, and he was very clear with me. He told me, what do you want? Do you want just a seminar, learning a little about what's Iaido? Or you want to really understand grading, for example, and maybe someday teach this martial art? I told him that I really want to train, to learn and train and grading. I think something that helped Mexico is that we are really open to all kinds of expressions of self-development, mindfulness. When people from Europe or US, Canada came to Mexico for the very first time, had a good impression. There are serious people that are working in connections with expressions of Buddhism, just not for fashion.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Tokuskai Inside Look podcast. Today we're speaking with Genaro Luis Cervantes from Mexico City, Mexico. Genaro has been training in martial arts for over 28 years, during which time he's founded the Mexican Asia Budokan in 2003 and started teaching both Iaido and Jodo shortly after. He currently holds the rank of Godan in Aikido, Yondan in Iaido, and Nidan in Jodo. Genaro is a huge proponent of Iaido and Jodo in Mexico, having organized seminars with Pam Parker Sensei and Thomas Groendal Sensei from the US and Nicolas Diaz Sensei from Chile. In this wide-ranging conversation, we talk about his personal journey in martial arts, the primary motivations that drove him to pursue these disciplines, and their development in Mexico over the last decade. Genaro's story is an important reminder for us that if we set goals in our lives, face challenges head-on, and build relationships that sustain you, the results will come in good time. So, without further ado, here's Genaro Luis Cervantes from Mexico.
My name is Genaro Luis Cervantes. I'm Mexican. I studied physics and math here in Mexico City. I started to train Aikido in 1992. Iaido in 26 and Jodo in 2013. Well, why I decided to start Budo? Well, when I was 17 years old, I was not really a Japanese fan or samurai fan or manga fan, anime fan. No, unfortunately, when I was 16, I lost my mom. That event was like breaking point in my life. I remember that I heard, well, it's the expression, I heard a voice in my mind that told me that I should pay attention, take care of my education, take care of your mind. I didn't do sports, didn't play soccer or anything. I just studied. My mother and father told me always that I should be good at school, but they never encouraged me to sports. So one thing or one change in my life after my mom died was to change things in myself. For example, clothes, and do one kind of exercise. I was not sure about what. My elder brother suggested me that I try Aikido, a martial art, because there was no punches. One friend of him trained Aikido. When I had the opportunity to attend to see the class, it was impressive. In 26, I decided to change something in my Aikido training. At that time, I had the opportunity to meet Kendall Sensei, a very skillful Mexican. I asked him if he agreed with teaching Iaido for me and my Aiki students. Well, at the beginning, he refused a little. He was not so convinced about teaching just Iai, but he was very kind after an interview. He told me, well, if you really want to learn Iai, let's do the experiment. He never taught Iai, just Kendo. Our dojo was the laboratory. Fortunately, we had the opportunity to convince people in general that was interested in Iai. And the dojo grew up. Soon, I think in 1 or maybe 2 years, we were 15. And at the beginning, we were a few, I think 2 or 3 persons training. So I think after, well, my Iaido Sensei taught me about a little about Jodo, but he told me that he won't teach me about deeper. So in 2013, I had the opportunity to attend in Mexico City again to a Jodo seminar. And I thought that it was the perfect complement, not just for my Iaido practice, even for my Aiki practice, because some things in my Aiki practice and when I was giving my class, some things was not very clear with the jaw. So, well, the relation between sword and jaw was really impressive for me, and I decided to start the third, the third way of martial arts, and that in this case, Jodo.
When you first started, when you said you decided that you needed to try out Iaido for not only your own practice, but also for your students, what was your thinking behind that? Where was your Aikido practice at that point? And why did you decide that that was a good time for Iaido to be brought in for you and for your students?
Okay. Well, usually in Aiki practice, I heard that was really connected with the sword, but usually we did just a few suburi with the boken. So I thought that if I train with a real sword, it could be helpful. So I asked my students if they were interested in knowing about the sword and a different way. And they encouraged me saying yes. Yes, it could be helpful, nice, of course, because the way I learned Aiki was not related with any kind of kata. For example, there are some branches of Aiki that practice Iai of Aikido, special training, and they practice kata. But of course, my experience, we don't train anything about kata. So I thought that was the right time to go deeper in my understanding about the sword, and I chose Iai. Well, in Mexico City at that time, there was any Iai dojo in Mexico City. My dojo was the first. And I think it helped me to understand the relation, not just because Aiki and sword, the relation between expressions of Budo. For example, in this case, I practice Aiki, but not Kendo. But Iai is related to Kendo and Jodo too. So it was the opportunity to get together, to have a bigger community to practice with.
That's very interesting because up until that point, if you were focused on Aikido, Aikido has its own community. And then there's other ones like Judo, Karate, and then there's the Kendall Federation. In Mexico City, what was it like in terms of all these different martial arts? Do they typically just stick to their own groups or is there communication across?
Well, I think there are big communities. Of course, karate, for example. I'm not sure about judo. Aikido is big. At that time was small, medium. So I think we don't share events. I think it's very rare. It's very strange that Aikido train with at the same time, for example, with Kendo people. No, it's not that way. I think there's a few communications, and I think 30 years before, dojos were more protective of their communities. So if you, for example, in Aikido, if you train Aikido, don't go to train Kendo. No Kendo. And if you train karate, karate is the best. Oh, don't train Aikido. Aikido is not good. Aikido doesn't have competition. For example, there are not tournaments. So you will just train. And what's that?
Mm-hmm. How have you found your communication with the Kendall Federation? Who do you communicate with? Who do you connect with?
Well, fortunately, as I told you, my Iai sensei was Kendo practitioner and instructor, and he was very clear with me. He told me, what do you want? Do you want just a seminar, learning a little about the Iai, what's Iai? Or you want to really understand grading, for example? and maybe someday teach this martial art. So as he was very clear, he go right to the point. I told him that I really want to train, to learn and train and reading. So he told me that I must be a member of an association and in Mexico, Mexican Kendo Federation. So he encouraged me to get an affiliation, not just train like, oh, okay, some people do, just train and never ask for a grading or never go to a seminar. No, I decided that I must do the complete set of the complete Budo expression, not just like a bit.
What were those early days like when you've been Aikido for so long and now you're diving into this other space? Who were the kind of like the first people you met, and how have you seen these arts develop in Mexico City or in Mexico in general?
Well, the develop is, I think, is very slow. Well, if I can say, I think at the beginning we were a few. So I think as my dojo started to encourage people, students for grading, I think other dojos started to train more formal, yeah, in a more formal way. So younger practitioner decided to copy. As I started to travel outside Mexico, I think younger than me practitioners started to travel too. And of course, we decided and we choose Canada, for example. But the community is very small. We are, I think, not more than 100 practitioners in Mexico. So sometimes I think I have to push, and sometimes people do best effort by themselves, traveling, asking for grading. Now there are, for example, more Shodan, Nidan, and Sandan.
Could you talk about any of these trips, either you going to a foreign country to be exposed to more Iai, what was that like, or also inviting senseis to come from another country? Could you talk about both of those experiences?
Okay. Yes. Well, I think there was a very important event in my Iai journey. After 3 years, I started training Iai. My sensei, my Mexican sensei, decided not to teach anymore because of personal reasons. So I lost my sensei. Well, his life, of course, he's in good health, but he's not teaching, he's not practicing anymore. So that situation encouraged me to think about what can I do. Well, I decided to learn outside Mexico. In 2011, there was a Latin American Kendo tournament in Mexico City. I took my Shodan Shinsa in that event, and I paid attention mainly to two sensei. One was from the US, female sensei from US, and sensei very young sensei that was translating from Japanese to Spanish. And this sensei is from Chile. Again, something in my head told me that I should invite those sensei to Mexico. Something told me, it's like your nose told you that. 1 year after, in 2012, I decided to challenge my Nidan, but in Montevideo, Uruguay. So I carry my Iaido and go to the adventure. In Montevideo, there was a kind of Kendo Iaido tournament, seminar grading. And while Kendo people was in tournament, I noticed that this female sensei again was teaching just for a Brazilian person, just for one. And I decided to talk with her and ask if she can teach me to, or I can learn from her in that moment. And she was really kind, really generous, and I had the impression that I was in front of a very, very impressive Iai sensei. And I think it's not difficult to know who I'm talking about. Well, I'm talking about Parker Sensei, Pam Parker Sensei. At that time, I didn't know that she was a very well-known Iai practitioner. I just knew that he was Rokudan at that time. But that was the point of starting a relation. And 1 year after, in 2015, I decided to write her to invite to Mexico City. And even she just saw me in Montevideo once. She told me, yes, I can go. Well, if you invite me, let's do it. And that was the beginning of a very close relation, learning from Parker Sensei. But as I told you too about this younger practitioner from Chile, well, that time it was difficult to travel, for example, to Canada. I don't have a US visa, and I think until 2016, Canadian government asked Mexicans for visa. So it was really difficult for me to travel to North America. So I decided to went to Chile, to travel to Chile. Also, I got in contact with this sensei, Nicolas Diaz Sensei from Chile, and we decided to travel with a small group, I think 4 people. We went for our first time to Chile, and we had the opportunity to learn from Kazuhisa Kaneda Sensei. Oh, of course, a very impressive seminar, a lot of people from Latin America. We talked with the Diaz Sensei to start a relation, but thinking in Muso Shinden Ryu. So Diaz Sensei told me that he was agreeing to help us with the communication with Kaneda Sensei, and he invited regularly each year to Chilean Jodo Seminar with Kaneda Sensei. But I forgot to tell you that my relation with, well, as Aikido student, or I think 3 years after I started, I had the opportunity to learn Aikido from Japanese sensei in Mexico. But the interesting point is that this sensei was the president of the Canadian Aikido Federation. Maybe some people that heard this speech remember Yukio Kawahara sensei. He was our Shihan for 14 years. Unfortunately, he passed away. I think in 29, I'm not sure if it was in 29 or in 2010. Every seminar, he invited us to go to Canada. And as I was just a student, I don't have enough money. I never could went to Canada. But Canada was always in my mind. So when Canadian government finally decided not to ask for visa, immediately I thought I must go to Canada. But unfortunately, not for Aiki, for Iai. I chose the Wealth Seminar, Iai and Jodo Seminar, for my first trip to Canada, for getting contact also with, I consider now my Jodo sensei, Thomas Groendal sensei. And I think that was the opportunity to learn from Japanese sensei, to stay in contact for my very first time with Canadian people, US people, in a very, very huge and impressive seminar. And of course, with Taylor Sensei, I think I met Gojo Omi Sensei in Montevideo, Uruguay. He was very, very, I consider him very skillful, impressive guy. So this trip to Canada was the opportunity for staying in contact for the first time with very, very high-ranked sensei. As I just trained here in Mexico, I have never seen that amount of practitioners and tournaments and Jodo Seminar. No, it was, as we say in Mexico, it's another world.
To a lot of people that aren't from this part of the world, they think that Mexico and US and Canada are very close together, but the countries are huge. The continent is huge. And just traveling from one place to another, there's a lot of challenges. Just to give everyone a sense of it, If you were to go from Mexico City, you mentioned to go to Uruguay, to Chile, if you wanted to come to Toronto, Canada, how long does it take you to travel, and what's the kind of approximate cost for you to even just come to some of these places?
Well, yes, it's, for Mexicans, it's really expensive. Of course, for example, trip to Toronto, we were always looking for discounts. For example, maybe $500, I think. Maybe for Canadians and US people, that amount is not so huge, but we add to airplane ticket and the hotel and seminar and grading, for example. Maybe we must consider $2,000, I think, each trip, $2,000 or more, depending if we want to challenge for done grading. The cost of grading depends of the done you are asking for. So sometimes I used to, for example, pay the plane, and I paid it in portions, partialities, during 6 months. And I have to save money for 1 year, planning the trip, look for discounts. For Latin America, well, it's worst because it's very expensive to travel to Latin America. If I compare, it's cheaper if we go to Canada than to Latin America. So always I had the opportunity to just once, travel to US, to Utah, to the US Iaido and Jodo nationals. Impressive events. Oh, a lot of practitioners. Oh, it's another world. No, yes. Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about so far like your beginning of Iaido and Jodo, your exposure to the rest of the world, and maybe you can talk about these relationships, particularly with, you mentioned Parker Sensei, Diaz Sensei, and Thomas Groendal Sensei. What other interactions do you have that are memorable to you, either at a seminar or inviting them to Mexico, I don't know, at dinner time, or anything that you think about fondly, any specific times that are memorable?
Oh, okay. Well, in Mexico, I think I enjoy every conversation with Parker Sensei. She usually, after class, we usually spend 2 or 3 hours just talking about life recommendations. She always is very kind, giving good advices. I really appreciate that moments. I think, well, event was when I asked Taylor Sensei for coming to Mexico City for a Jodo seminar. For any reason, she told me that it could not be possible, but he suggested me to invite Groendal Sensei. So it was strange, but I think at the same time, very lucky to receive a sensei that know nothing about us. So he was very kind. He was very open to explain us a lot of things. Now I appreciate him a lot because he let me train with his dojo community. Even in this time, these pandemic times, he let me train with the Hoshu Dojo through internet, learn from his sensei from Japan, Keigoto Sensei. So I think these opportunities didn't happen if I never showed a good spirit training. So I feel really, really happy to have these opportunities. I think every opportunity is special. It's difficult to mention one. I think every time that we receive one sensei from outside or we go outside Mexico, it's very special. For example, Canada Sensei was really kind in Chile, was very happy to receive people from Mexico, and very surprised that we traveled very, very far to his seminar. I think every moment is special. It's difficult to choose one or two, but I think all of them are special.
So thinking back to your own practice or the work that you do to help spread Iaido and Jodo in Mexico, especially Mexico City, Do you have a particular time that you feel like things are changing for the better, where when you first began, there was nothing? And then when did you start noticing that, okay, we have something more here than what I had when I started? You feel confident about the future of these arts, either with yourself or with the city or with the country?
Well, I think the reference is our first trip to Canada. I think that some younger people noticed that and they started to ask me the opportunities for seminar and grading. People from other states of Mexico started to write to me. They decided to go outside, travel to Canada, to the US. I noticed that they were really concerned about improving. So I helped them as much as possible, for example, with the contacts, with the reference, and of course, working with Mexican Kendo Federation, because we must show document, for example, the letters of permissions. In Mexico, we call that aval, it's like permission. It's letters of permission. And I noticed that I think since 2016, 17, Iaido practitioners started to travel outside Mexico, grading, taking seminars. Some of my students went with me to the seminars, tournaments. In Mexico, there were just 2 Jodo Seminar. And yes, I was forgetting Stroud Sensei. For example, Stroud Sensei comes to Mexico, I think, 4 times. And he's very open to teach Yai. And I think Stroud Sensei helped to encourage people to go outside for Iaido grading, Iaido seminars. It's a very good example for Kendo Iaido people because also Diaz Sensei, they are very skillful in Kendo, but at the same time, they are really convinced about the relation. And when they explain about this relation between Kendo and Iai, they are very good examples. And of course, I think Kendo people got more convinced about training Yai. And of course, Yai people had the opportunity to know about Koryu. So we are more concerned about improving our knowledge of, for example, Moso Shinden Ryu or Muso Jikiden Eishin Ryu.
One of the great things about these arts, and you've shown it this way too, how it can spread to different countries and you can find some people that are very passionate about it. I'm also interested in terms of this podcast is also showcase the different cultures that these are from. So this might be a hard question, but what do you think about Mexican culture that works well with Japanese culture and Budo culture in general? What have you found is a good mix? Because that's one of the things that's great about these arts is that they can go anywhere in the world and you can find people that want to do it. So what have you seen in terms of the linkages between Mexican and Japanese culture?
Well, in Mexico, there is huge interest in Japanese culture. Younger people interested in manga, anime, of course, Japanese, of course, martial arts. I think Mexican people, we have the idea that in Japan, everyone is practicing very Zen. I think that something that helped Mexico is that we are really open to all kind of expressions of self-development, mindfulness, Buddhism. I'm Buddhist. So that helps that the contact with an expression from, for example, Japan or China, India, be more or be easily be accepted for Mexicans. I think many people look for expressions of mind training, calmness, breathing, yoga, etc. Also, I think we are very friendly, very open when people from Europe or US, Canada came to Mexico for the very first time. I think they had a good impression. Maybe not because of insecurity and anything or something else, but because our manners, our culture, our food help a lot to have a very good impression. I think there are serious people that are working in connections with expressions, or for example, of Buddhism, just not for fashion or just for a while. No, they are people working and learning deeply Buddhism. There are a lot of practitioners of yoga. There are very good practitioners of martial arts, people with, I think, in karate or Aikido, I think is more people high ranked. And I think that way of thinking help us or help Mexican people to have a better relation with another cultures, the expression, in this case, martial expressions.
I definitely see that with the few interactions I've had with any Mexican, especially in the Iaido community. All of you have been very generous with your time and and very kind and open to a lot of things. So it's great to see. Great to have you join in this community, especially in this growing Western Hemisphere. Or are we in the Western Hemisphere? Yeah, Western Hemisphere. So I have a few now quick questions just to ask in terms to get to know you a bit better. These are called rapid fire questions. You can either answer them or you can skip them if there's nothing interesting in the question. But let's just go through the list. So the first one is, do you have a quote or proverb or something like a motto that you live by?
I think that as I practice Buddhism, I always think about impermanence, accept that things change. I think one of the things that is more interesting in my relation between Buddha and Buddhism is that point. Accept that things change, accept impermanence, train your mind. I think like in English you say that jewel, like a diamond. And we have to not just to take care of our mind, our health mind. We have to train it not just because we should show more bravery, because to accept transitions, changes, impermanence. And even as I told you, with the experience that motivated myself to start Budo, we have to understand that. Yes, mainly in these difficult moments, we have to reflect a lot about that.
Going along that line, I'm going to ask you a question that you could choose not to answer because it might be difficult. If your mother was still alive today, what do you think she would be most proud of with you?
Well, I think about the changes in myself. She grew up as a farmer, so she couldn't study until I think junior high school. So I hope she were proud about that I could study until a master's degree, trip outside Mexico, and of course my family. Of course, because my family always support me or encourage me to be a better person. So I think she will be proud of the result. Maybe not my grade, my I grade. Must not she told her anything, but I think about the changes in myself, about the kind of person I am now.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure she would be very proud of you for where you've become. So switch to a lighter topic. What would you consider is your comfort food? So something that if you're feeling tired or sad or something that you just eat and it makes you feel happy.
Okay, well, let me think. Well, I love Mexican food first, but I enjoy. I'm not a vegan, so I enjoy. In Mexico, we call it chicharrón. It's the skin of pork.
Oh yeah, so good.
Yes, you cook the skin of pork. I enjoy eating chicharrón with beer and of course with Mexican guacamole.
That sounds so good.
Yeah.
If someone were to log into your YouTube account, on the homepage, YouTube shows you videos based on what you've looked at before. So what are common videos that you would see on YouTube when you open up the app?
Well, I think cartoons videos. Yes, for example, The Simpsons, Simpsons videos. I think mainly a special manga. Maybe you know about it is Saint Seiya. Mexico, we call them zodiac related. They use armor, and it's about Greece, Athens, some kind of. Do you know that?
No, I'm not familiar with it, but sounds very
No.
interesting.
Well, it's because I remember that anime since I studied my university, and when I felt upset about the class or upset about my results in a test, I used to arrive at home and spend a little time watching this manga. Yes, Sainto, I think in Japanese, well, kind of katakana is Sainto Seiya. Yes, in Mexico, we translate it as Caballeros del Zodiaco.
Very cool. So we have time for one more of these questions. When you look at the list, is there any one that stands out? Another question that you have a good answer for?
Not really. Well, I just want to mention, well, a very special mention for, well, my last Aiki sensei, because I think is another point of relation between my Iai training and my Aiki training. He usually told me that he doesn't practice Zenken Yai or Jodo, but as French, he know a lot of about Europeans that train Yai and Aikido, Koryu also. So he knows a little about Jodo. So when he came to Mexico, he thought about, he usually asked me about, well, I will teach Aikiken Aikido. I won't teach Iaido and Jodo, but he always had a good connection with me. I think because of this interest in the sword, the jaw, and of course this mindfulness profile that I think Budo developed in us. I think if I could say something that is the best result of my Budo journey is the sense of that I can have a very more deep relation with this concept of mind training. I focus on mind training. I don't enjoy fighting. You can see I train 3 martial arts, but they don't have competition. Well, of course, Iai and Jodo, but it's another kind of competition. You show your kata, you don't fight, you don't cause injuries on your partner. So I think my profile is that the way of peace, but I think Aiki Jodo have a common philosophy, the meaning of not do nukitsuke just because do nukitsuke. You have to think about another ways of convincing the other not to continue attacking. Jodo, I think, is the same. Try to calm this war with the jaw, but not causing injuries. And I feel really comfortable with that profile of martial art. I had never trained or tried Kendo or Karate or Judo or any kind of Jutsu, for example, Jiu-Jitsu, never. So I think it's a very, very good decision in my life. I think it's the best decision in my life to train these 3 martial arts. I feel really comfortable with them. And I think are the expressions where I can do something to help. I think maybe if I train karate or kendo, I think I really don't be very helpful.
And thank you so much for not only focusing on being a good role model in terms of a practitioner of these arts, but also teaching your students locally, trying to grow the number of people that can benefit from these arts. And also when you invite people to your city and host larger seminars, you're helping to spread that to a lot more people. So that effort is super valuable and greatly appreciated from a lot of people. So thank you so much for doing all your work.
Oh, thank you, Patrick. Thank you for this opportunity. My best regards to Canadians, sensei, and practitioners. You are always very kind with us. In this case, my dojo feels really connected to Canada. we're very happy to have very, very good friends and very, very good sensei, and special thanks to Omi Sensei, Cruz Sensei, Taylor Sensei, not just because they are very, very skillful practitioners, because of their effort to also spread Iai, Jodo, the opportunities of grading huge seminars. I think the most significant seminars in America. So we appreciate a lot that effort that Iaido and Jodo Canadian community do, had chances for learning, for improving. We consider you really, really our friends. We are a very, very good example for me, and speaking for my dojo, for us.
It's great that we can connect online like this, and then hopefully in the not too distant future, we can get back together in person.
Thank you very much, Patrick. All the best for you. Please keep safe, and it will be very great to see you again in Canada. And of course, had the opportunity to train. I usually see your videos, your kata perform, and I consider you one of my examples.
Oh, thank you. That's embarrassing. No, yeah.
If I challenge my fifth dan, choose examples of fifth dans. Let me see your kata, because I don't have any idea of how should I show myself when I challenge my fifth dan. I don't have any idea. In Mexico, I don't have peers. I think in Mexico there are just 4 dans, and they are older than me, and we don't stay in contact each other. So I don't have any example for fifth dan. Of course, Diaz Sensei, but we see each other once in a while, every year maybe. But comparing with Canada and US, where you can train fifth dans, Roku dans, Nana dans together, well, I don't have examples. So sometimes I feel like in the darkness.
Yes, so we're all doing our best. Hopefully we can help you more, because we appreciate that you are putting in so much effort without the same support that we have. So definitely keep up the great work, and then we'll see what other means we can to help each other out over time.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Have a great day.
Have a very, very good day. Bye.
Bye. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that episode, because we have a lot more exciting conversations to share as we explore the world of the traditional Japanese martial arts. The Inside Look podcast is available on most common podcasting platforms and on YouTube. Remember to subscribe to not miss out on new interviews as they are posted. We're always looking for feedback to improve, so please write us a review or drop us a line at podcast@tokushikai.ca or on Facebook and Instagram at tokushikai.canada. Until next time, thanks for listening.